with the North County LGBTQ Resource Center. Unfortunately, Max, their director, is not with us tonight. He's in Rome, I think. Pity. But I know he's very well represented, and we're delighted to have Lisa here to speak with us tonight about her personal connection, and not only her personal connection to this, but also the things that are going on at the center that relate. Lisa was raised in Michigan and moved to California in 1983, and settling finally in Encinitas, where she met her husband Antonio, and they've raised a family of 4 children. I can't believe you have 4 children. That's just not possible. She's got a 20-year history of grassroots organization. Her past community volunteer work includes PTA president, educational foundation director, the 2018 North County San Diego Women's March Program Committee, and she's also chaired the Gala Committee for the North County LGBTQ Center's Gala each year for the last 3, so busy. In 2015, Lisa founded a local activism group, the North County Justice Allies, which is a positive action group focused on social justice issues, elective representation in the county, and mobilizing the community. So that's all very, very germane to what we're doing here tonight. As I mentioned, she is currently working with the Resource Center. She directs Pride by the Beach, which is their event in Oceanside every October, which is a wonderful, wonderful event. The fact that the city of Oceanside opens all their doors to let us do that right next to City Hall is nothing short of amazing. And I credit Max and Lisa hugely for making that happen. And on top of all that, she works as the Parks and Recreation Commissioner for the city of Encinitas. So as I said, busy. Anyway, Lisa, come on up and
Thank you. Max started with a little idea a few months ago and said, hey, I suggested that maybe you speak at World AIDS Day. And I thought that maybe I'd just, say a few words about my brother. And then I got the flyer and it said keynote speaker. Max likes is full of surprises, and it's no surprise to me that he's not here tonight, but I know that he's standing with us. First and foremost, I am very honored and humbled to be standing here. This is the first time I've done a keynote speech, so I hope I do all of our people proud up here. I've been tasked with telling my personal story, which I'll get to in a moment. But I want to say thank you to Pilgrim Church. They have been a partner of the North County LGBTQ Resource Center and serving on their board as a community liaison for many years. And the fact that they've hosted this vigil for 19 years is a real testament to the strength of our North County community. I also want to say thank you to Patrick. I haven't met him before, but I met him today, and I'm familiar with the work that Fraternity House is doing in the community with wraparound services and really supporting those that are dealing with HIV today. Over 36 million people are still dealing with HIV as we speak. Despite being diagnosed in 1984, I believe, 36.7 million people have died. This year alone, 7,000 people will die in America. And before we get started in my personal story, as I was doing some research and really learning a lot more about World AIDS Day, this is their 30th anniversary, which was started in 1988, born out of the tragedy that was the 80s, that decimated the gay community, that decimated gay men community, the gay male community. So to celebrate is not the right word, and Alexander Billings said it best in 2016 when she spoke about World AIDS Day. World AIDS Day is not a time to celebrate. AIDS, still in this day and age, is a death sentence. Not to be morbid, not to scare anyone. But we must realize that when you get diagnosed with HIV virus and you develop AIDS, it's a death sentence. Sooner or later, that will be more likely to take you. Alexandra Billings is a transgender activist, a trans actress. I encourage you all to follow her. She's super inspirational. She's lived with the disease for 3 decades. More people are living with HIV today than are dying from HIV. That's hopeful. Also in my research and in reaching out and learning about what's happening in the community today with people who are HIV positive, I learned of the story of Roxana Hernandez, I'm sorry. And I wanted to say her name out loud today. Roxana was someone that had dreams and hopes and families and sisters and family, but she fled Honduras because of persecution just for who she was. She was here in the United States in detention. She was ill. She needed access to medical care. No one paid attention to Roxana. No one gave her the kind of dignity and care that each of our family members who are dealing with HIV and are HIV positive deserve every day. To take up space in our earth, to take up space in our human family. They deserve access to health care. They deserve the dignity to die with dignity. She died of dehydration alone. So I wanted to say her name, and I want all of you to say the names of the people that you're here to honor tonight. Before I tell you my personal story, which will be difficult, I want you to open your hearts tonight. More importantly, just open your hearts to those people that are next to you. If you've lost someone yourself, we're here for you tonight. If you're dealing with HIV and you've lived through 3 decades, we applaud you. And we want you to have health care access. If you're here tonight with someone that you've lost recently and the pain is still very, very real to you, this is a space where you can express that pain without stigma, without judgment. If you are dealing with HIV and you're living with HIV, I see you. I love you. I want you to thrive. My brother was born in 1956. His name was Dave Morgan, JDM. He was the second JDM in my family. He came out to my family in 1974, the year of his high school, senior year of high school. He was not met by love and tenderness. He was shunned by my mother, distanced from my father. But I was just 9 years old, so I didn't know neither here nor there. He was my brother. He was someone I had grown up with, watching grow. He was a beautiful, beautiful man. Black hair, blue eyes, an Adonis-like figure. More importantly to me, my brother was the person that opened the doors of the world to me. He showed me that there was something different. He showed me color. He showed me the way to live a life full of joy, fully accepting who you were. In 1974, when he came out, he was shunned by my parents. The story has a happy ending in the end, though. Even though my mother had terms of their relationship where she wouldn't really know about his gay lifestyle. He lamented later in some papers that I had read, I went through a lot of writing in order to get to this moment today, that he was a prolific writer and artist. And he lamented one time when he was suffering from depression, wondering about life. He spent 10 years of his life wondering about life and what he was here for. And he said, I reject being depressed about being gay. Even in 1974, in the early 70s, when the movement of gay rights was in full swing. I reject that I could be depressed about being gay because it's who I am. It's what I am. So that couldn't be the reason. He went on to say a lot of other reasons he could be depressed, but in the end, he decided that he had a lot more to be happy for than depressed for in the 1970s. He lived in many different cities. He lived in Chicago, in San Diego, in San Francisco, in LA. He traveled the world and the country. He went to school for 1 year at Michigan State University, where he explored his sexuality and who he was fully and openly. And then he decided to travel. He traveled by bus, by train, hitchhiking across the country, through Canada, the Rocky Mountains. He had a real wanderlust about the world, wanted to discover the great secrets, talk to the hobos, talk to the rich people, talk to whoever he could find, maybe discover the secret of life. So in the 70s, my brother was, this figure that came in and out of my life and to teach me great lessons. One of the greatest stories that I have that I remember about him that was so happy is he took me to the Detroit Museum of Art. And we walked around and we looked at art for quite a long time. And then he decided that we should play hide and seek in the museum. Now, I was just doing anything that my brother said was a great idea, so that sounded fun. And we ended up closing the museum. We never got in trouble, but boy, was that a day to remember with my brother, playing hide and seek in the Detroit Museum of Art with playfulness. When I graduated high school in 1982, I believe my brother was already knew that he was sick, but really wasn't sharing that with any of us. I went to visit him a lot in Chicago, and the first time that I went to, one of the times that I went to visit with him, I got there and he was very sick. He had a fever. Not just any old fever, the kind of fever that makes your whole body feel like it's just boiling in a boiling pot of water, 106-degree temperature. He went to the hospital, but I couldn't go with him. The next day I was able to visit him. I thought, I'll go, I'll wipe his brow, I'll be there to comfort him. But we were met with hazmat suits. We were forced to put on gloves and masks because they just didn't know. They didn't know what was causing the disease. I couldn't touch him that day. He was far away from me. That probably would start a series of time for my brother where he was in and out being sick. He moved to Seattle with his partner. They were called lovers at that time, lovers and partners. And his name was John. And they lived in Seattle and they owned a bar called Sparks. And they were involved in the leather community. As a matter of fact, in my research, I found that he's commemorated on a plaque for the leather men in Seattle. And Seattle was a very affirming city then. Lots of gay men and gay people were going to that city to live because it was very affirming. You could be out and proud. The day we got the phone call that we had to come to Seattle, it was someone named Chuck. Now in the gay community, they rallied around each other. They formed families. They were galvanized by this terrible ravage that was coming through the community. Chuck was everything to us. The three siblings gathered. He provided airplane tickets for my sister to come there while David was in the hospital. And you know what ended up in the hospital? A cut on his leg. Just a cut. He had no way to fight the infection. When I arrived at the hospital, he was just barely speaking. But I do remember the last words he said to me were that he loved me. And in the end, that's what we have between each other, is the love that we share. Within a day when my sister got there, he wasn't speaking any longer. But he'd be damned if he didn't tell us what he thought. So we got him a yellow pad of paper, and he scribbled on it whenever he wanted to tell us something. And the first thing he said to my sister when she got there was, "Don't forget me." We don't want to be forgotten. He didn't want to be forgotten. He is not forgotten. We left him there with a friend, with Chuck, with the community, took a little bit of respite, went down to the cafeteria. But that moment came when they called us over the loudspeaker, and we knew. There were terrible drugs that they gave patients at that time, and maybe they still do today. They had given him a drug that would paralyze him so his body could rest. But he knew. His mind was still alive. He knew that he was paralyzed. was the most terror I ever saw anyone feel.
CT and megadoses.
We said goodbye to him that day, and my life had been changed forever. The lives of the people he touched had been changed forever. The world was open to me, but I lost my LGBTQ family. I lost my queer family that day. And I lost my brother. The richness that he brought to me, the wanderlust that he brought to me. You know, fast forward many, many years, where I didn't deal with my grief. And then, inspired by my best friend's child, I was reconnected with my queer family. I was reconnected to that mission of loving each other, of standing up for each other, of being a visible and vocal ally every day of my life. I started my work with the North County LGBTQ Center and realized that that was my purpose. That's what I was meant to do. I was meant to honor my brother through that work. And I haven't regretted a day. When you say it's busy, when you're busy doing something you feel passionately about that's fueled by a deep love in your heart, you have all the energy in the world. So it's been my great honor to become Pride Director of the North County Center and learn more about the programs and outreach that they have. And today, as I'm reflecting on that, out of that time when the community was ravaged, they were also galvanized around each other. Galvanized in such a way that they would never be silent again. They would take care of their own. The lesbians came in and took care of their own. They brought chicken soup. They brought comfort. They wiped each other's brows. And when the hospitals wouldn't bury them, they took care of them. They took care of those people that they loved and rallied around them. And that is still happening today. Throughout that terrible time in the 80s when we were losing so many people, and we didn't know what was happening, and our government was leaving us in silence, and we were shunned. They were shunned. Our loved ones were shunned, isolated. They rallied around each other, and they survived, and they are surviving today. It is our job to come together as a community and stand with those that we have lost, honor those that we have lost, and end the stigma surrounding HIV. Out of that time is also a time of rebirth, coming out of the 80s. And I'll read a poem that my brother wrote about that rebirth. Like a stone worn smooth by lime green coldness, my inner harvest of ideas and love is coming forth. It fills my horizon with bouquets of beauty and umbrellas for the rain. Let us all be an umbrella for the rain. Let us all be a comfort to those we meet. Later on, we're going to have a call to action and a procession that will be led by Joey Pearson. And in that call to action, I'm going to talk about some hope that we have for the future for people that are living with HIV and AIDS. What our community centers and people like Fraternity House are doing every day to make sure that the stigma of living with the disease is ended. There are more people living with HIV virus today than are dying. That's a message of hope. But we must press on. We must make sure that our government doesn't erase us, doesn't erase them, doesn't ignore the problem. We must not be complacent. We must be vigilant. Thank you.
I have no words after that. We'll have another song by our band of Pilgrims, and